Hi everyone, it's Rena. So this video is looking at the full moon in Cancer, which will occur for many people in like the United States and in Europe on the 13th of January. So that's a Monday, and the rest of you guys, it will be on the 14th at some time. And this is at 24 degrees of Cancer, although I see here with my chart generator that's like 23 degrees, 59 minutes, and 45 seconds or 48 seconds for the moon. So at the time of a full moon, the sun is at the same degree opposing it. So the opposite sign of Cancer is Capricorn, so that's the sun sign. And you have to find out where this is falling in your chart at 24 degrees of Cancer, that Capricorn Cancer axis. Like, what are the themes? What is that opposition all about for you? And so when we look at the moon in Cancer, Cancer in astrology rules the fourth house of home and family. And I personally feel that it rules the mother, and some people say that it's the father that it rules. The bottom line is that this can be a, like a family type of influence of some sort. There could be something coming to a head with your family of origin. That's what I like to call it, family of origin. Because the fourth house that Cancer rules is also about the past. It's about your childhood. And, you may have created a family as an adult, but you have a family of origin. And even if you don't talk to any of them, they still are part of your life. You may still think about them often, even if you never speak to any of them. And they still can influence you in the sense that you may, for some people, if they haven't healed, they can still feel controlled by that parent well into adulthood. So these kinds of themes can emerge at this full moon in one way or the other, or it could simply be you decides that you've had enough. That can be something coming to that final point. And that could be drama filled, of course. But it might be that you learn something about one of them, or you have some kind of revelation within yourself. Now, and it's interesting, with the opposition to Capricorn, because, the moon represents the mother, and Cancer is the, symbol of the mother. So you have the moon in the sign it rules. And Capricorn rules the 10th house of career, the father, the authority figure. And so you can have that battle. And to me, the battle is, are you stepping into your own power as your own authority figure? Because a lot of times people give away their power. And this can come from a childhood where there was an abuse of power in some cases. So it's like in adulthood, have you stepped into your power? And that has nothing to do with like the type of career you have, because even though that's the 10th house, a lot of people who feel like they have something to prove can be overly ambitious or in need of this externalized power themselves, like going into positions of management or becoming a parent so that they can be that kind of, petty tyrant that the late Wayne Dyer talks about. And that's not power. That's not true power. True power is, really wanting to become the best version of yourself, and tending to your own garden, because that's really what becoming the best version of yourself is. It's not going around trying to control and change other people. So these themes of like also with the moon in Cancer, mothering, if somebody did not get the type of nurturing that they wanted as a child, they can seek out someone to, or more than one person, to provide what they never had. They might seek out a partner, they might seek out their children, to give the love or the attention that they, whatever, the care that they never got. But the thing is that it can make a person very demanding emotionally. And this is kind of the shadow side of Cancer. The empowered sense is being that nurturer, not only to other people, like, some people are empty shells because they never received nurturing. And so it's hard for them to give it, but then they demand it. But it's being able to give it to yourself. That is the ultimate when you are able to tap into yourself as a source for the things that you need, and you become very self-sufficient in that way. And ironically or paradoxically, that can actually make it more likely for you to receive love, because you're not coming from a fear-based or a lack-based consciousness and vibe. So anyway, these issues may play out for people in one way or the other. The issue of patriotism with Cancer, the United States is a Sun in Cancer country, and I don't know other countries that might be as well. I think that England and India are Capricorn countries, which is interesting because of the caste system. That would make a lot of sense. But I'm sure British people say, we don't have a caste system, but I'm talking about the class system. Maybe it's a little bit more loosened these days, but you know what I'm talking about. So let me just talk about some of the things. Well, I just want to say, because I was looking at the U.S. chart, and I don't know if I'm 100% correct on this, but I think that the full moon is going to fall in the 8th house of the U.S. chart, which could be that something hidden becomes revealed. And I know that in some of the recent months that I have talked about this, and I, when it gets to the full moon, I'm thinking, okay, is this actually going to come to pass? Because these things don't necessarily fall on the day that we're talking about, but little by little, things are being revealed if people are really paying attention. And it's one of those things where there's a lot of change happening. I think that people realize this, and I'm talking specifically about the United States, but you can definitely see this around the world, that there's a lot just going on. And it's almost to the point where I'm saying, well, why all of a sudden is everything going haywire? Of course, there's always something going on, but there's just it's just kind of heating up. And so the bottom line is that when we look back, maybe like 10 years from now, we'll say, wow, we really experienced a lot of change within a short period of time. But when you're in the thick of things, it doesn't necessarily feel that way completely, because we have 365 days a year. So it's like, it's not like a revelation is happening every day. But there are a lot of things. Sometimes I'll go on, X or whatever, and there'll be things that came out days earlier, and I'm like, how come I never heard about this? And it's because, it's not being promoted in the mainstream media, and also there's just so much that it's hard to kind of keep track of everything. So anyway, I feel like the United States, there might be some, maybe it'll be a big thing, because the eighth house is also about what is festering, So the full moon, it's drawing it out. The full moon, people traditionally have fasted on full moons because supposedly the detoxification process. Though during the waning moon, they have this thing called the moon diet, and saying that you can lose weight during the waning moon and all of that. Uh, and that's you know up to the individual whether or not they believe that, but it is a religious tradition to fast during a full moon. So and the toxins, drawing those out, especially with eighth house, that can be very illuminating, to say the least. But it can, but and I would say this too for the United States, is in the eighth house, it can be this, it can be quite emotional because it's, first of all, it's in Cancer, but it's also the eighth house is Scorpio's domain, so it's a water house too. But for everyone around the world, this can be very emotional. And you may feel this sense of melancholy or sentimentality. That's the positive version of melancholy. The more, the up version of melancholy. And we feel this way because we feel like something has been lost or is ending. And full moons can be endings, they can be culminations. And, sometimes just when I think about life as a whole, I think there's only so many more days that I can embody this experience. I mean, maybe spiritually you can still relive things, but, when you leave the earth plane. But, I think about that and it really like touches me because it's like, whatever you think about life, I'm sure that most people have some things that are near and dear to you that are connected to the earth plane. And thinking about them not being there, it's like if you plan to move to another part of the country or to another country, you may feel a sense of sentimentality. I think that's how I say it. And that's human, So this could be a time when you really feel the feels. And so Mercury is in Capricorn. Mercury is going to keep us very like realistic, but the truth is that the heart can get carried away because this is an important thing to bring up. The moon and Mars will be in conjunction at this time in Cancer. And for people who have this in their natal chart, and when they have a conjunction with the moon in Cancer, they can, the moon and Mars, they can be very impetuous. In other words, very rash on an emotional level. So they can like be moved to act on things based on their emotion, which can be really problematic sometimes because your emotions can be aroused, but that doesn't mean that they are going to be constant. As a matter of fact, in astrology, the moon rules fluctuation. That's part of it, this change, the changeability. So to assume that because you are experiencing a certain emotion that is giving you a sign to do something, I think is very foolhardy. And there might be times when you act on your emotions and it's almost, it's like your intuition is kicking in, and you make the very best decision you possibly could. And you look back and say, wow, I'm glad I acted very quickly on that. So I'm not saying that's 100%. But anyway, just keep that in mind because, I mean, especially if you are feeling nostalgic about something and you are, like, let's say your ex comes back into the picture and maybe you had a very checkered past. Maybe you had a very like stormy relationship, but they're coming to you and they are expressing they've missed you, blah, blah, blah. And maybe you have just about gotten over them and now they've come back. It sounds like, those lines from that song, I Will Survive. And you start to get nostalgic. You start to think about the good times, the good old days. You don't think about the bad old days, just the good old days. It's funny how we are very selective that way. And you may just on impulse say, we're going to go back together. And that might be the worst possible thing you could do. I'm not saying that it would be, across the board 100%, but people can't just express that they want to be with the person that they broke up with. They have to demonstrate that something has changed because the past doesn't magically get negated because somebody, has some kind of feelings. So this is what I'm talking about, and I think it's one of the most important things to keep in mind. I think there's going to be some issues with our ego because the sun is opposing Mars and the sun is in conjunction with Pluto and there's a square between the sun and Chiron. Now, I talk about the ego in a way that's very positive, and I don't think that the ego is synonymous with narcissism. But in this case, I am using the ego in that context of being misguided and maybe that selfish, self-centered outlook. When people have hard angles in their natal chart from like a square from the sun to Mars or an opposition, like in this case with this transit, they can be very competitive, and it's like they feel like they have to prove things to other people for some reason. Maybe they feel like an underdog in life and they feel like they're not powerful, so they're doing things. So this kind of thing can come up. Now, I want to call attention to a very treacherous aspect, the Mars-Pluto opposition, which is occurring too. Mars in Cancer and Pluto at 1 degree of Aquarius. So it's an out of sign opposition, but it's close enough to form an opposition, okay? So that is really the crux of the situation, is that people are wanting power, and when they feel powerless, it affects how they feel about themselves. And this is like when we're talking about people who are malignant narcissists, this is exactly what is going on. A lot of times they have a lot of self-loathing and they're projecting it on other people, and they're also trying to be to hold power over other people so that they can keep their own feelings of inadequacy at bay. And so I'm not saying that you're going to have this, but you may encounter this. And also remember that Mars is retrograde, and it's retrograde in Cancer, and that's very hypersensitive, very touchy, and surprisingly combative, because Cancer is, you'd think of as a water sign, Cancer is going to be very lovey-dovey, but Cancer is also a cardinal sign. It's a very strange sign, Cancer, especially when Mars is occupying Cancer. Whether it's your natal Cancer or your natal Mars or this transit, it can be very combative and kind of like the best defense is a good offense. And I've just found that Cancer people in general, even sun sign Cancer people, can dish it out, but they cannot take it. They can, Cancer people, some of the funniest, like comics are Cancer, sun sign Cancer, have prominent Cancer because, um, well, I know specifically like sun sign Cancer because they are great mimics. They're water signs, so they absorb, but they can be very good students of personality, being a water sign and embody that. And just they're just great. An example is somebody like um, Billy Crystal is a Cancer. I know there are other comics too who are Cancers who are really funny. But anyway, this kind of thing can lead to a lot of emotional aggression. So stay above the fray. Don't allow yourself to get baited by somebody whose ego is, getting bruised. And they're doing it to themselves, really. And then I was talking about the conjunction between the Sun and Pluto. Well, that can be very powerful, actually, because, Pluto represents, to me, like the ultimate understanding of ourselves beyond just if you look at the 10th house, if somebody has a sun there, they can say, I am successful, I am a leader, these kinds of things. But that's kind of like connected to the world. The 8th house is a water house, it's more of an internalized thing. So it's embodying that sense of power and self-knowledge at a deep level. But it can also be, it's scorpionic. So if somebody is not feeling powerful, they can abuse that they can use it in a dark way. And then the square between the Sun and Chiron, this is kind of the ego wound. There's another word that I think is, or term, but I can't think of it right now. But it's kind of like this ego wound of like what life kind of kind of like brainwashes us or conditions us to believe. And this, examples would be comparing yourself to other people, having this set concept of what it means to be successful. And that's kind of the Capricornian thing because we have the Sun, which represents the 10th house of, your place in the world. And if you feel like you're missing the mark, you're not where you want to be, you have to really consider, have you bought into the Matrix version of what life is supposed to be? Because it's very easy to get hijacked. And I feel like this full moon can be a great time to let go of the need to, it's like opposing that outer authority. And that is what the Matrix represents, because it's trying to get us to feel like we are not our own, that we don't have personal sovereignty, that we need someone to tell us what to do, that we need to go from having parents to like surrogate parents in the form of religious figures, political figures, and other societal gatekeepers, things like that. And so now that we have Pluto going, for good, at least for this cycle of Pluto and Aquarius going into Aquarius, this is really a chance for us to, as a collective, and this is more, this is not really the spiritual version of it, but I'm saying as a collective, to be able to network with one another and avoid this central authority. But even with this sun in conjunction with Pluto, a time for us to really embrace transformation at a deep level, because that's what Pluto is about as well. So Venus is in Pisces, and we do have we have this water influence with the moon, Venus and Mars, these personal planets all in water, contrasted with the Capricorn energy, which is very hard boiled. And water and earth harmonize with one another, even though you could say that there's an opposition between the sun and moon and the sun and Mars. So that's supposed to be a hard angle, but they're complementary signs. So they're like two peas in a pod in a way. But the elements of water and earth harmonize with one another. And it's really a good balance, because you get the I was going to say the practicality, but I would also say the realism of Capricorn in terms of the material world, and you get the spiritual, the emotional and spiritual upliftment of the Cancer and Pisces energy. And it's important to have both, because it reminds me of the Temperance card, as above, so below, earth and water, the material and the spiritual. So anyway, I'm going to leave it there, but I wish all of you a wonderful full moon in Cancer, and have a great time. Bye.